All right, guys, here's the deal. Dr. John Lott is going to be joining us here momentarily. Enjoy the program today. He'll be with us for at least the first half of the show. Kind of hard to get everything into John, and it's an hour just isn't enough time to do this with you. So stick around. We'll be right with you on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, the Garbage Day edition, begins right now on a Wednesday for you. Mark Walters in the CZ studios, filling your prescription for freedom here in front of this Patriot Mobile microphone. Got the Patriot Mobile hat on today. Yes, at the Patriot Mobile Ranch. Greg in Dallas, Texas. How you doing, man?
Not too bad. Here we are. It's a Wednesday.
It's a garbage day. It's hump day. Go over that.
Top of the hill day.
Go over that top of the hill, right? Get closer to your favorite day of the week.
That's right.
So, guys, we're live for you on YouTube today. We really want to push over to YouTube. Please, if you're a YouTube fan, you use YouTube, you subscribe over there, or don't. We want you to subscribe at Armed American Radio. We've gotten through just a host of milestones over there, and we do appreciate it very, very much. We appreciate your help and support. The numbers are growing, and we need you to continue to help us do that. So subscribe to Armed American Radio on YouTube. Like, comment, and share these live videos. You're seeing lots of videos going up during the day, cut-up interviews, lots of fun stuff. And we will be doing, during the breaks again today, Greg, just to let you know, guys, another Mark with guitars during the break, but you have to be watching in order to see it because it's not going to go out over the airwaves. And today we're going to be looking at this one sitting here behind me, and it's an awful lot of fun. So we'll do that, and if you miss it live, we'll have the video up for you later in the day. Greg, I'll let you do your rest of your deal, and for the other two locations in the chat, and we'll go right to Dr. John Lott.
Yeah, sure. While you're over there on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe, and be sure to turn notifications on so you know when Mark does go live, when the show's putting stuff out. You can head on over and give it a watch. We're also available on armedamericanradio.org or .com. Hit that menu icon and select your watch live or listen live option. Lastly, if you want to watch us over on X, it's at AAR Mark. To join our live chat, just download Telegram, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
Bam, wow, Pam, Zumo. I don't know what that means, but let's just go
either.
to. I don't. Pow, Zumo. No.
Hi.
Dr. John Lott, crimeresearch.org. John, how are you? Welcome in, my friend.
Doing great. Great to talk to you again. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. John, let's go to gun background checks. We're going to fly right by with John, ladies and gentlemen. The two segments with John are going to move right along. Then we're going to Google some gun control. Gun background checks are failing the wrong people. Commentary, Real Clear Politics, John R. Lott, Jr. You say you started out with the background check system for gun purchases is a mess. This appeared 2 days ago in Real Clear Politics. John, what's up?
Well, one thing you see all the time is when you have a Democratic president, the Republicans will attack them for not enforcing the gun control laws. And the number one example of that is the fact that you have all these denials, hundreds of thousands, in fact, up to 5.1 million denials now from the NICS background check system. And yet you see very few prosecutions. If you look at 2022 and 2023 together, you have about 250,000 denials that occurred during that time, but only 8 convictions. Not too many more even attempted prosecutions. And, these are very easy cases to go and bring. You have somebody who signed the 4473 form swearing under oath that they are not a prohibited person from buying a gun. They presented a government-issued photo ID in order to identify who they are. And these purchases are very frequently recorded on video. These are very easy cases to go and successfully bring and prosecute. And yet they don't bring them. And so the question is, why is that the case? And the problem is that, it's one thing to go and prosecute, let's say, a felon who tried to go and buy a gun through a licensed dealer. It's another thing to go and try to prosecute somebody simply because they have a roughly phonetically similar name and similar birthday to somebody who's prohibited. And, I've talked to people in the past who have worked in the Department of Justice, and, they'll say, look, we'd love to go and prosecute these cases. But they're not real cases. So, you can't go and prosecute somebody just because they have a similar name to somebody who you don't want to have. And then yesterday, Thomas Massie got unanimous support in the House, which is pretty unusual, to go and force the Department of Justice to finally put out the data on the errors in the system. Thomas had twice gotten promises from Christopher Wray when he was director of the FBI that they would release this data, and he reneged on the promises both times. From what I understand, from when I was working at the Department of Justice and people that I've talked to over the years, these errors are primarily concentrated on Black and Hispanic males. People tend to have names similar to others in their racial groups. Hispanics have names similar to Hispanics. Blacks tend to have names similar to other Blacks. The thing people may not understand is you have about 33% of Black males who have felony records, so they're prohibited from owning a gun. About 18% of Hispanic males have felony records, so they're prohibited. About 6% for whites, about 1.5% for Asians. And so, it's not too surprising then that you're going to have a lot more errors in terms of confusing roughly phonetically similar names and similar birthdays with Hispanic and Black males. And so in part because of that, basically all the Democrats in the House went along with all the Republicans yesterday and passed Thomas Massey's bill.
John, it says to me, let me go back to your comments about Christopher Wray. No friend to gun owners. I don't think that's a shock. But their refusal to release this information, to me, that speaks to this, that if they release the information, we're going to see what an utter failure the system is, and they don't want to shine a light on that because they're fundraising off of it like crazy, and they're trying to expand background checks. Am I onto something there? Or are they mutually exclusive of one another? It doesn't appear that way to me. It appears that that's why they don't release it, because the background check system is a failure.
Well, I mean, I had battles when I went to work. I mean, I think you're right. It's kind of hard to get in people's minds. I can just tell you that when I was in the Department of Justice, they fought tooth and nail against releasing this data. And in part because of that, Thomas Massey, who serves on the Judiciary Committee, twice in public, in testimony, got Christopher Wray to promise to work with Thomas's office to go and find out. Because when you fill out the 4473, you put down your sex, you put down your race, you have all sorts of other information there. It's very easy for them to go and say, okay, well, we know the number of people who are denied. We know the number of people who are denied who are of different races or sexes. And so they could tell you what percent of the denials are Black males or Hispanic males. And then the easy thing to do is just to say, okay, you dropped cases. You didn't prosecute them. Well, whose cases did you drop? Well, there are 5 stages of review that occur with this. The first stage of review is the National ATF office, with no lawyers involved, simply checks the paperwork. And about 93, 94% of the cases are dropped at that stage. The next stage is that the paperwork's sent out to the ATF field offices, and they go and check it again. And there are, again, no lawyers involved in the process. And another 2% or so of the cases are dropped at that point. So you have about 96% of the cases are dropped with no kind of legal judgments on whether they're good cases, whether they want to prosecute a particular case or not, but just are they who they say they are, okay? And are they prohibited people? And so, but the problem is that people aren't told that the cases were dropped. You have to go and hire a lawyer almost all the time. I mean, in theory, it might be possible for somebody to go and fight against this themselves. But the problem is that the process is complicated. The vast majority of people are going to have to hire a lawyer. You're talking about $3,000 on up is the cost. Mm-hmm. And so you have a situation where we've had 5.1 million denials that have occurred since 1998. And somebody may want to have a gun, But is it really worth $3,000 for them to go through the process to be able to go and correct a mistake that's not their fault?
Yeah, probably not, John. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Then I want to take you to some other numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, what countries have the most gun violence and why? And I think you'll find the way it's written interesting. I did. We'll be right back with John. Yeah, welcome back to the show. Guys, you should be a member of the National Rifle Association if you're not. Every American gun owner should be. America's oldest civil rights organization is the NRA. Don't let the left tell you any different because they're lying to you. The NRA is the oldest civil rights organization in the United States and fighting on behalf of your civil rights in courtrooms across the country today and well into the future. Help the NRA go from that 800-pound gorilla back to that 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. And it's really easy to do. NRA.org/AAR, NRA.org/AAR. You can find the National Rifle Association and all of our great partners. Greg, real quick, ask me how many cups of blackout coffee I had to start my day today.
How many cups of blackout coffee did you have to start your day?
Not enough, just one.
Okay.
Not enough. Blackoutcoffee.com. If you're watching on your screens, that QR code is Blackout Coffee. You can visit them at blackoutcoffee.com/AAR. Let's go back to Dr. John Lott, and that is crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org. Dr. Lott, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. So back to the background checks quickly. $5.1 million, $3,000. Those are denials. 96% of cases dropped. How is this considered, under any circumstance, a wild success?
Well, 96% are dropped at just the first two stages of review. You have
It's even worse.
Well over 99% are dropped that aren't recommended for prosecution, and an even smaller percentage that actually are prosecuted, and then you have convictions. So if you look at those 2 years, 2022 and 2023, and they're representative of other years, you're talking about 0.003% of the denials result in a conviction. So you're talking about 0.003 of 1%. So like 1 out of every 300 of 1% result in a conviction. So that's pretty tiny, and it's easy fix for this. If private companies had an error rate that was anywhere near the error rate that the federal government has, they'd be sued out of existence. If they had an error rate that was 100th the error rate that the federal government has, they'd be sued out of existence under federal law. And so my point is, why not just require that the federal government has to meet the same standards for doing background checks that private companies have to meet?
You've asked that question here before. I don't know that we'll ever get it fixed. The other side flips it. The other side flips it to, well, obviously it's working because felons aren't buying guns, and they're willing to put up with 5.1 million Americans being hassled as a result. So it's guys, how about we just get rid of it altogether? As far as I'm concerned, I should be able to buy a gun out of a vending machine, but that's a whole different show. John, because we have such limited time with you today, I found this on How Stuff Works, and I thought this was interesting. More for the way it was written or wasn't. Well, I'll let you determine that in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. What country has the most gun violence, total fatalities versus highest rates? And it goes into, let's just start with number one, Brazil, highest total gun deaths. Brazil has recorded the highest number of total gun deaths in the world with tens of thousands of firearm deaths each year. Number two, United States, highest among high-income countries. The U.S. stands out among high-income countries for its high rates of firearm mortality. It has one of the highest gun death rates compared to peer countries and leads in civilian gun ownership. That it says in here, and I have to hand them for this, nearly 2/3 of firearm deaths are suicides. Keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Number 3 was Venezuela. Number 4, Mexico. And it says violence linked to organized crime. Venezuela was high firearm homicide rates. Number 5 was Colombia, persistent gun violence challenges. Number 6, India, large population, high deaths. Jamaica, highest gun homicide rate. Ecuador, rising gun violence. 9, Haiti, extremely high homicide rate. John, it gives reasons for the other countries. In the United States, it just simply says the highest among high-income countries and doesn't give any breakdown. I found that interesting. When you look at something like this, what do you think when you have studied this for so long?
Oh, I don't take it seriously. Look, these guys, it would have been nice for the United States to go and say what the murder rate was or what the gun death rate was in the United States. The murder rate, it looks like this for 2025 is about 4 per 100,000 people. you have some of these countries which may be like 80 per 100,000 people or whatever. It'd been nice just to have some type of comparison there.
Some context.
If you want to go and look at, quote, high-income countries, how they define what a high-income country is, I believe is very arbitrary. One thing I would do, and I've done in the past, is to look at developed countries. There's an OECD, there's kind of a club for developed countries, and the United States isn't the highest there. The other thing you have to do, and I kind of go through this in my book, Gun Control Myths, is most countries don't collect data on gun homicide rates. They just report homicide rates. About half the countries in the world don't report gun homicide rates. Mm-hmm. We're used to getting all sorts of data here in the United States. The United States, if you look at homicides, we're below the average. We're below the median, which means half the countries in the world have a higher homicide rate than we have here in the United States. And one of the problems is that we look relatively high in terms of firearm homicides, mm-hmm. because the countries with the worst homicide rates tend not to report, break it down with firearm homicides. So if, we were right in the middle and the top half of the countries don't report it, it would make us look like we're right at the top. And it's just an artifact of what countries report that type of data and which ones don't. As far as their discussion there about saying, well, strict gun control is important for reducing this, and they point to two countries. They point to Japan and Australia. As far as we can tell, Japan had low homicide rates before they had any type of gun control there. Australia, you and I have talked about Australia many times, but I think it's incredibly misleading. I think the types of gun control laws that they had with their confiscation in 96 and 97, people can find on our website at crimeresearch.org. I think it actually was counterproductive. And we can talk about that. But, if they're just going to go and point to a couple countries and say, see, this proves that strict gun control laws reduce homicides or firearm homicides, they could point to Switzerland, mm-hmm. okay, which has probably a higher gun possession rate than the United States or Israel.
And they don't,
but, they don't,
and they're not going to. And John, we've only got 30 seconds, so I'll cut it there. But we'll be talking with you on an upcoming show. Might even be this weekend. We'll reach out to John. Ladies and gentlemen, please support crimeresearch.org. Dr. Lott puts tremendous amount of effort into these researches, into the research and into these studies, so that we can bring you the facts and put this stuff in context. And there is another point that I want to make. I'm going to add an exclamation point to this when we come back. Dr. Lott, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon to join Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org. We'll be back right after this break. Don't go away. All right, guys, let's do some fun guitar stuff. What kind of guitar is behind Mark today? This is my latest pickup. Literally, I'll explain that in a second. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a Gibson Les Paul Jr., and it is brand new. It is a 2026. 2025. I have to check the back of the headstock. It is a 2025. This guitar is unique, not unique, but as far as more modern guitars, because it has the single pickup, and it's the single coil, what they refer to as the P90 pickup, and the P90 pickup on this guitar screams. It doesn't buck the hum. When you see the other guitars, I'll show you tomorrow when I have another one here, but you'll see 2 pickups, sometimes 3. Those are humbucker pickups, and they literally buck the hum. Just yesterday, as an example, when I was using this guitar at my lesson, it was funny because every time my instructor was trying to talk to me, when we weren't wailing on these things, he had to turn the amplifier down, or I had to keep returning my volume button knobs down on this. You have a volume and a tone on this, which makes it a very honest guitar because that amplifier will hum. So it screams, ladies and gentlemen. The Les Paul Jr., if you play guitar and you don't have a Les Paul Jr., get you a Les Paul Jr. They're absolutely fantastic. It has become my funnest guitar to play.
Close to close.
I absolutely love it. What will be here tomorrow? I think I might show you my very first guitar tomorrow. And we'll talk about it. We have a lot of guitars to cover with you on Guitars with Mark during the break. We'll be back. Couple seconds. Indeed. Welcome back to the show. Patriot Mobile, Patriot Mobile, Patriot Mobile. Where's my phone? Here's my Patriot. This is a Patriot Mobile phone if you're watching. Fun stuff. And if you're watching, I've got a Patriot Mobile hat on. Love this hat. So do my wife and kids. They're always trying to steal it from me. You've probably heard me say that before. Patriot Mobile's the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. Somewhere around the country, Patriot Mobile is supporting your right to bear arms right now today. And Greg in Dallas, Texas, let's remind people, what did Scott Coburn tell us as far as the percentage of employees that carry in their corporate office in Texas because they encourage the carrying of firearms at work? What is it, 80%?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and the other 20% might just feel safe and say, I don't want to carry in here today because I feel, 80% of employees, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder how many AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon, those unnamed competitors of theirs, openly encourage their employees to carry at work. I bet it's a whopping big fat, well, I can't say O. O's not a part of our numerical system, but it's a big fat 0, Greg, isn't it? Don't you think?
100%. I bet they have the 30-6 and 30-7 laws posted on their front windows of their business.
Yeah. Now, here in Georgia, it's not a violation of law to walk past their no gun signs, even to go to work. But it's their policy. They can fire you. They cannot have you arrested in the state of Georgia. They can trespass you, kick you out, and they would likely fire you. But that's up to you. How much do you value your life? Patriot Mobile values their employees and your lives. It's patriotmobile.com, patriotmobile.com/AAR. Don't forget to shop over at Bud's Gun Shop, our exclusive online retailer over there. Tons and tons and tons and tons of accessories for you. Lots of clearance deals. And we are working on a date to get up there to Bud's. It's just a scheduling issue. Everybody's busy, particularly with summer coming up. Got to work around vacations and work schedules and all that fun stuff. But we're going to be either at the Sevierville, Tennessee, or we'll be at the Lexington, Kentucky branch up there of their retail outlet at Bud's Gun Shop in the very, very near future. Guys, if you like to watch the show, please subscribe to us, like us, share, comment on YouTube. We would appreciate it. And tens of thousands of you have, and it's great. And we appreciate it because we wouldn't have hit those social media milestones if it were not for you. Greg, when I hear Dr. John Lott talk about, well, let's go back to the forget the the statistics in this bogus article we were just talking about. Let's go back to the background checks for just a second, Craig. What does it say to you? And you, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Walk with us here. When you hear that 5.1 million denials, 96% of cases dropped, 5.1 million. Greg, this is an utter failure of a system that has never worked. So it's understandable why Christopher Wray and the rest of a left-leaning DOJ doesn't want these numbers out. What does it also tell us? That 100% of Democrats voted to release this information. Now, I guarantee you they have an ulterior motive here than the Republicans do. But the facts bear this out, ladies and gentlemen. This program is an utter failure. Greg, I don't know what the money is that the federal government is spending on this every year, but it's in the millions and millions of our taxpayer dollars. Couldn't that money be better spent somewhere else, Greg, in Dallas, Texas, the wizard behind the boards at the mothership down at Salem in Dallas, huh? Couldn't it be? I mean, come on.
Any dollar in government's hands could always be spent better. And almost every government program, unless it's Medicaid, which issues out fraud and stuff like that, is an ultimate failure. If their design behind this was to keep the Second Amendment and your right to defend your life out of your hands, well, then that was, the end result, and they win there. But for the citizens of America, this, and for everyone that's covered under the Second Amendment, which is everybody, this is an ultimate failure on your liberties and your rights.
Do you want to keep going? I was actually enjoying that response. I really, truly was. And honestly, I was reading a comment from Gundogan in Lake Greenwood, South Carolina, who had a question about
that
what
must
I was
be over
talking
on the
about
YouTube feed.
during the break. Yeah, on YouTube feed. And Gundogan, I'm going to answer your question during the next break. It's a good question, and it's a fun one. Thank you for asking it. I don't personally, I can't tell you how many times my name's been run through Nix. Okay? I don't know. I've lost count. If somebody asks me today, how many guns do you have, and I was legitimately going to answer the question, I'm not going to be able to spit it out. I'm going to have to say, well, oh my gosh. 52, 7, I don't know a lot. 3 safes? Now, I've never been flagged for a conditional denial, not one time. I know people who have. And in every single one of those instances, and this speaks to what John was talking about back in the day, depending on what state you're in, but it's a 3-day gig. The gun shop can sell you the gun if they don't hear back anything from ATF, if it goes back. Now, ATF shouldn't be involved in this at all. And guys, by the way, we are working on our ATF Get the F Out t-shirts. We're working on that right now, believe it or not. It's actually being very seriously considered, and there's a couple designs that I think you'll like. But the ATF shouldn't be involved in this at all. But here's the problem, pragmatic. They are, and it's not going to change anytime soon. So that's where we have to base our conversation on. We can call it what we want, but I find it interesting. I've never had that. Do you know anybody that's ever had a conditional denial, or have you, and then had it expire and you never find out why that even happened?
No, not for myself personally, and I am racking my brain, and I don't believe anybody I know that has had that come up.
As I'm talking about it, I'm thinking in my head, do I know? I know people.
It's never
who've had
been mentioned to me.
I've a couple, but it has not been a significant number. It's not been anybody close to me. It's been acquaintances that I've known said, "Oh, that happened to me last year when I went to buy a gun." And I go back and I think of the name. What's the guy's name? Is it similar to a murderer's name? Did Adam Lanza, is there another Adam Lanza out there that tried to buy a gun? And his name kicked in? I mean, Adam Lanza's dead, but that's not going to stop anything. You've got senators who have been put on no-fly lists and had conditional denials, and congresspeople. And I don't know, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And I don't think you can ever get an answer. But I believe it's safe to say that the system is an utter failure. But it does interest me that the other side, Greg, will say, oh, no, it's not. Because felons aren't buying guns, that's why we need to keep it in place and why we need to strengthen it. It is working. No, it's not working. You could get rid of the background check system if you had to. And, well, let me say refine it, because I don't want to. It's not going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. To talk about it as if it's going to be gone, it's not going to happen. It should. But we have to be realistic. It's here. It exists. So how do you fix it, as John Lott was saying? There are ways to fix the background check system. The Form 4473 has been refined lately by the ATF. Go ahead, Greg. You were going to ask a question?
So I had a couple of questions, and if I remember correctly, the NICS system was instituted late 90s, right after the Schumer rule was implemented, and so that was one way they were keeping guns out of felons' hands, or they were not restoring the rights of ex-felons so that they could then, in turn, buy a firearm. So that's how they decided on a double-edged sword that they were going to keep guns out of this section of the population's hands. And for just understanding the whole trail of denials in this scenario, 30, it was the simple legislation that was passed during that Congress, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I know we're getting ready to take a break, and I got to hand it to Greg. I didn't know denial 30 was a word. Thank you for that, though. That's pretty cool. Greg snuck that right in. Guys, when we come back, I'm going to be very honest here about background checks. And there's so much, there's nuance here. There's a lot of mitigating factors. But I will hand it, well, we're taking a break. When we come back from the break, we'll discuss it. And I'll be very, very honest and upfront with you about where we're going with this. And can't get in people's heads. We don't know the answers. We just know what we know, and what we know we can fix if it's broken, but it never seems to happen. We'll be right back. All right, guys. So, was it Gundoggin says Lake Greenwood, South Carolina, USA, checking in. Is the Les Paul Jr. the staccato of guitars? Well, that's an interesting question. Because when I hear that, it depends on what you think of staccato, I guess, right? Let me go over to their site real quick. Now, I would love to own everything they put out. They are beautiful firearms. And Lee Williams, the gun writer, is a huge fan of staccato as well. Greg, I think you've heard him talk about staccatos.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the problem with staccatos, and that's why I say it's important to put into context. I guess it depends on a lot of personal factors. What is your financial situation, right? Well, that's certainly an issue when you're talking about Gibson guitars. Gibson guitars are known to be expensive, and they are expensive. There's no question about it. Staccatos are very expensive firearms. They're compact carry guns. I think generally start around $2,200, $2,300, $2,400, $2,500 and go way up from there. The several that I have fired that are like butter triggers out in the Arizona desert have been in the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 plus range. And that's with no fluff and buff done to them. Okay, maybe a couple upgrade packages. They offer some upgrade packages, things like that. So, having said that, the Les Paul Jr. retails at $1,599 in this configuration with the single pickup. Phenomenal guitar. And guns and guitars are a lot alike, particularly when you talk about collectability. How many more guns do you need, guys? Just one more, right? How many more guitars do you need? Just one more. Each gun you have, if you have a spouse that says to you, why do you need so many guns? All you need is one gun. No, every gun is different. Every gun does different thing, has different ballistics, has different feels, different trigger resets, different trigger pulls, different trigger mechanisms, different ergonomics, different calibers, different sizes, different weights. It's the same thing with a guitar. Has a different sound, different shape, different feel, different tone. You can do different things with it. This one in particular, because it only has two knobs. So to answer that question, from a price standpoint, I would say no. From a quality standpoint, I would say hell yes, and wouldn't hesitate to answer that question that way. I think that was a great question. Interesting. Tomorrow, I don't know what guitar we'll go to tomorrow. I think we'll go to, because I do get the question quite a bit. What was your first guitar? What was the first guitar you picked up and learned on? I'm thinking about learning. You've inspired me to want to play, even though I'm older. If you can do it, I can do it, blah, blah, blah. It's all true, and you can. I don't care how old you are. Pick it up. Have fun with it. It's great stress relief. I think I'll show you my first guitar. I get that question a lot. What was the first guitar you got? No, it was not a Gibson, okay? Nowhere near it. It was a well-known name, but let's just say very low end, which is common for most people that begin playing guitar, regardless of the age. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, and we'll get ready to come back here in just a second. Greg, what's our time look like?
We
Welcome back, folks. Attorneys on retainer. I'm cracking up here because we're coming into the break. I'll tell you why in just a second. Plus, what I've got in that mug is hot, and I mean spicy hot. It's extremely good. But anyway, beside the point. Attorneysonretainer.us. This is more important than what's in that mug. Okay? Because these are lawyers that are going to defend you if you ever have to use a firearm in defense of your life, or a loved one, or your community, whatever the case may be. They will be there immediately. And the back of this card gives you information that's different than maybe some other cards that you might have had or do have. Because this is a law firm, ladies and gentlemen. It's not an insurance-backed program, although there are insurance programs there. There's lots of different products that you can find over at attorneysonretainer.us, which is why you want to go there. Watch the videos, the testimonials, listen to the founder, Mark Victor, and pay attention to what's going on over there. There's tons of different products. The coverage that you get with self-defense attorneys is unbelievable. They're going to be there for you as your lawyer at the moment you need them. And this is putting 4 attorneys in your back pocket. You can't carry 4 attorneys around, except you can now with this card. attorneysonretainer.us/AAR. I know you've been on the fence about it. If you haven't pulled the trigger, pun intended, yet, pull the trigger and get that done. We're going to save you $25 off the sign-up. It's only $37 a month for all of those attorneys working on your behalf to keep you out of the slammer. Put a value on that, would you please? Seriously, give that some thought. And all of our partners, you can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. That includes Arizona Citizens Defense League, AZCDL, VCDL, Virginia Citizens Defense League, and I thank many of you who have joined. We just need your numbers in there, guys. All right, Arizona to keep from happening in Virginia, what's happening. You know, Arizona, AZCDL, smart enough to say, look, we got to get proactive here. We don't want this happening to us. The other side is trying to do it. So here's what we're going to do. Get the word out. Get as many members in there as they can. Guys, it's only $40 to do. You can do like $10 a month like I did until you hit the 500. Just like I did, you become a life member, as I am. Same thing over at VCDL. Just check them both out, vcdl.org and azcdl.org. Pot of Gold Auctions, by the way, POG Auctions, Walk the Talk America, supporting them, and we'll be talking with Cheryl from Pot of Gold coming up shortly. If you guys like pinball machines, by the way, they got a ton of them over there on auction. It's really cool. All right, Greg in Dallas, Texas. I'm going to be honest here. You know, but again, I'm coming at, every time this is why I would have loved to have gone on Piers Morgan's show, and I was asked many times to go on, but it happened to be during that difficult period in life at our house where my wife was going through breast cancer treatment, and every time they asked me to be on, happened to be a chemo day. It was just bad timing all the way around. Not a good time. Fortunately, she's fine 100%, 100,000%, which is a beautiful thing. But we did have to go through that. And I would have approached him differently than a lot of people on our side, many friends of mine who have appeared on his show. This was when he was vehemently anti-gun, which he's not, by the way, anymore. At least he doesn't talk about it that way. He's had an epiphany, a come-to-Jesus moment. He has seen the light somehow. But guys, there are certain things that somebody like Piers Morgan has to admit. There are 500 million guns in this country today, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going anywhere. Okay?
And growing.
And growing. They're not going anywhere. So to sit and look at people and tell them that they want to take your guns, good luck with that. Come and take it. And the fact that there are 500 million guns in the hands of well over 150 million law-abiding Americans who own those guns responsibly is more than enough proof positive. If the guns were the problem, you'd already know it by now. All right? That's just a fact. The Kool-Aid drinkers they're not smart enough to understand that. They don't look at things that way. They're very myopic. There was a shooting yesterday. We need to ban guns. Idiots, just idiotic stuff. So let's be really honest. Background checks are here, folks. They're here. And we tell you every single day, criminals are not buying their guns in gun stores. And they're not. Is that because of background checks? If they're convicted felons? Yeah, it probably is. It probably is. But then again, we will never know the answer to that question. I'm sure there are some that go, no, I'm a convicted felon. I can't go in there and buy a gun. Hey, Susie, will you go in and buy that gun for me? And don't tell them it's for me. Or better yet, I'm just going to break into that car or that house, because that's what criminals do. We will never know the number there. It's impossible to know the number. The fact of the matter is background checks aren't going anywhere. What we need to do is keep the 5.1 million people who get caught up in these denials and delays. We need to keep that from happening. And are there ways to do that? We've discussed some on this program before. And I'd go way back in my mind now, go back to, conversations we had with Alan Corwin, Greg. I'm going back years. And some of the ideas that he had. We don't have enough time to go into them now. Maybe that's something we'll talk about on Friday with Paul Markle, student of the gun. But there are some ways to fix these problems so that you, as a law-abiding citizen, don't get caught up in this nonsense and have your rights denied. And let me put it this way. There are states out there that are 30 days out. Conditional denials, extend blank time with the new bill. You know, the whole thing. It's a mess.
You know, Mark, I'm curious as to how they're going to handle all of this as the Restoration of Rights program unfolds and everybody starts filing for their rights to be restored. Even though they're ex-felons and their rights have been restored, will there be a marker on there that says this person is allowed to buy a firearm? This person is allowed to move on with the background process and purchase because they have had their rights restored. And at some point, I almost feel like that there's going to have to be a recognition that with the Restoration of Rights program, that actually background checks are probably ancient and were a bad idea, just like permits.
Yeah, when you can wrestle with this stuff all day long. It's the unknown. Is there a marker there? Let me. That's where I'm thinking about this, and as you were talking.
Sure.
Absolutely, there's a marker there. Okay, and let me give you proof positive of that. If you go in, well, somebody's denied because their name is similar to someone else's. That's a marker. It picked it up and denied that person. Why?
Yep.
Just because their name was similar. Clearly, there's a marker. What is that marker? That's an FBI background check. And someone with a similar name might be a known or imprisoned felon or convicted felon, you know. So yeah, that marker is there. In the meantime, I think there's a way to fix it so we can delineate which one's the good one and which one's the bad one. Like if felon who's the actual felon with the name that's similar to the law-abiding person's is in jail, that would appear to me to be instant fix, Greg.
Yeah, or if they're incarcerated, one thing, but if they have done their time, they've been off probation, parole, any of that kind of stuff, 30, and they have moved on with life and have restored their rights.
Yeah, that's where the problems are going to occur. Because I do know people who have gotten caught up in that, in rights restoration. I've talked to many of them over the years. Some of them are still fighting it. And then there are others who sail through the system. It's government we're talking about. It's government. And it's government control. It's bureaucrats. It's bureaucracy. It's always a mess.
60.
So, guys, the background check's not going anywhere, not for the foreseeable future. What we're going to have to do is clean it up because those numbers are atrocious. Obviously, it's an utter failure, and there are millions and millions of Americans being denied their rights. And what does Alan Gottlieb remind us? A right delayed is a right denied. It's that simple. So, I don't know. We'll, keep talking about it because that's what we do. And John Lott will be there to give us the dope because he's got all the numbers. It just works that way. Tomorrow,
30.
Patriot Mobile, Scott Coburn is going to be here. And I'm not sure, but I think I moved that interview to Sunday. So Scott Coburn from Patriot Mobile will be here tomorrow. And Brandon Wader was talking about the guitars and guns, and he says, what happened? He said, ask her how many shoes she needs. I was talking about guns and guitars are similar. How many more of each do you need? Just one more. If your wife ever gives you a hassle, how many more shoes do you need? We'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. We'll see you on the radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here today. If you're watching on the stream, you notice you're not hearing any of the music, and that's all for copyright issues. Radio's perfectly fine. So there's no disconnect. We just have to mute that so we don't get strikes. We've got way too much time and effort and money involved in seeing that that doesn't happen. So thanks for tuning in today. I do appreciate it very much. If you have not yet subscribed to us on YouTube, please do. Like and share the post. We appreciate the comments. And there were some good ones in there today. I wish I could have gotten to all of them. Gun Dog, and I hope I answered your question on the staccato. I guess it's just a matter of how that appears to you. What context you put that in. To some people, $2,500 for a gun is nothing. To others, they're saving for 2 years. Quality, I would absolutely put those two together. Interesting conversation. Guys, tomorrow's Mark with Guitars is likely going to be the first guitar I ever bought. And it's a fun discussion. So enjoy your day today, guys. Stay safe out there. We'll see each and every one of you on the radio. Thanks for being here.